Reading is from an old friend of mine in Charleston who was a mentor for me in my path into the ministry. She's a Congregationalist minister, and as I was considering going to divinity school, she was a graduate of Harvard Divinity School and gave me some good counsel. About a year after I got to divinity school, my then wife sent me this piece that Susan had published in the local alternative women's newsletter called Run, River, Run. To me, it's a touchstone that's become scripture for me as to what thanksgiving and gratitude mean. She starts with a quote from Wendell Berry: "We are what we are given and what is taken away." Norman McLean wades into the swift silver of Big Blackfoot River, casting from memories with the same reverence that he reserved for trout. Planting his feet in the slowly deepening riverbed, Norman begins to hear the long story of his life cascading by. From his birth in Missoula, Montana, where the river banks were the breast on which he fed as a child, through a restive adolescent initiation in the roaring rapids, the stilled reflections of his first love, to the dark eddies of gambling and debt that pulled his brother under. Now all are gone home before him in that great race to the sea. Eventually, Norman concludes from the timeless, sibilant prayer of water on rock, eventually all things merge into one, and a river runs through it. There is a river that runs through us. It is mystery. It is life. Some say God. It descends through my granite soul with the force of gravity and love, plunges through empty canyons, chisels out corridors with its wet hands, and slowly, ever so, widens the cracks and crevices of my failures into pools where grace collects. The injury of the river is also its gift. Where I have been cut deeply, so their life most deeply, most surely flows. I don't believe that the gifts of God come in the form of goodness, but in the face of life itself, in danger's shadow as well as dazzling light, in a disquieted heart as often as a still mind, in labor as in love. If we would receive the sacred, we must receive the river's flow, even as it injures, even as it takes away. I thank God for my handicaps, said Helen Keller, unable to hear a bubbling stream, or see its glistening green, or put it into praise. Yet she praises. I thank God for my handicaps, for through them I have found myself, my work, my God. That, to me, is thanksgiving. It's not about being glad for the good things that have happened to us. They are simply moments in the sun. Thanksgiving is standing still with an injured and an open heart and letting the river run freely through us. Each year at this time, I stop and cast into the water. I recount the story of the years past, of life given and taken away, our planet's staggering losses, our moments of forgiveness, our fulgent gains. I think of a French child who came swimming into this world on amniotic rivers, and I remember my grandmother's final crossing over to the other shore. I remember the intense hope of eyes brimming with the vows of marriage and the loosening tears of those whose hope was broken. I think of my own love found or friends lost. We are what we are given and what is taken away, blessed by the name of the giver and the taker. The confluence of all things returns to the sea, the source. The gift unites with the giver. Let the river run. The banks of my heart are wide with thanks. Stories of Thanksgiving. A few weeks ago, Mary Hannah Henderson and I preached a joint sermon on stories. And one of the things we said were that stories are one of the ways we have to order the world to give it meaning. When I was growing up, we told ourselves the story of the first Thanksgiving to explain why we have the custom we do of gathering with family and cooking a turkey and being grateful. When I was hearing that story in Columbia, South Carolina, I would not have believed that I would come to live a few miles from where that all happened. But that was then. This is now. Now we have a greater appreciation for how that event was seen from the Native American point of view. And from that point of view, it is not so pretty. At the time of the 350th anniversary of the landing at Plymouth Rock in 1970, Native American activists suggested that what white America celebrates as a national day of Thanksgiving, Native America should observe as a national day of mourning. I start from the point that there's a lot of justification for this. There's a fight for the history, with revisionists and counter-revisionists offering competing versions. But even from the point of view most favorable to the settlers, it appears that the history of the coming of Europeans to these shores, from Columbus on, has been a shocking one of slaughter, enslavement, theft, broken treaties, and decimation by disease. I'm not one to idealize pre-Columbian Indian life. It is not the Garden of Eden that some of us make it out to be. But the fact remains that the land we live on, the land this country occupies, was essentially stolen from an existing population by means none of us would approve today. The Mayflower left Plymouth, England in September 1620, intending to go to the mouth of the Hudson River. But the first land they saw was the hook of the Cape, which is what we now call Provincetown. They hunted for provisions down the inside of the outer Cape, and at one point they took some corn which had been left at a burial site as food for the dead. A month later they crossed Cape Cod Bay and anchored off the coast of what is now Plymouth, but they didn't go ashore much that first winter. They suffered from exposure, scurvy, and contagious diseases, and only half of the original voyagers lived to see the spring. In March, the remaining settlers moved ashore,